Hi, my name's Maya, and today I am joined by Darragh, and we're just going to have a little conversation in relation to the Pride in Higher Aspirations project. So Darragh, would you mind introducing yourself?
Hi, I'm Darragh. I'm a second year mobile and web development student at the University of Suffolk, and I'm also the LGBTQ plus officer at the University of Suffolk, which means I work with the LGBT society and also represent student views in Student Council.
Amazing, thank you. So I suppose my question would be, what are your roles and responsibilities as the LGBTQ plus rep?
I have kind of two branches of my role. One of it is supporting and representing students, which is where I take feedback from students and then take it to council. And then if there are bigger issues, submit motions, such as increasing the amount of gender neutral bathrooms at the university is one I've done recently. And then the second half is working with the society to put on events. So while they focus more on the entertainment side of things like nights out, I will support them and work with them to put on events where we get external speakers or are a bit more informational. So we've had the Terence Higgins Trust come in to do a talk about HIV, for example.
Could you talk to us a little bit more about the gender neutral bathrooms?
So at current at the University of Suffolk, we don't have enough, basically. And this was something that was brought up a few times by non-binary and trans students who wanted access to a gender neutral bathroom. So I put it in my manifesto for my second time running because I'm going into my second term in June. And as part of that, I've put forward a motion at council for the SU to work with the university in an attempt to get more gender neutral toilets, preferably one on each floor of every building, but at least one in each building, because at current there's only two and we have 5 buildings on campus.
Amazing, thank you. So do you feel that having an LGBT rep is important, and why?
I think it's super important. I know a lot of the students who come to me feel like they don't have anyone else they can go to and speak comfortably about some of these issues. Like if a course member's saying some stuff they don't necessarily think are friendly or maybe even a bit hostile, they don't really know who they can go to. So they come to me first, and then I can point them to the group that's the most able to help that person. And it also means that there's someone who can collect the views. So if someone brings up an issue to me, what I can do is I can put it in my group on Facebook and be like, is anyone else having issues with this? Can I talk to anyone who's having issues with this? And then I can take that towards the SU itself, speak to the president that's in charge of my role, and see what we can put in place to help students in those situations.
Cool, that's amazing. And so how did going into higher education, so how did going to university help you to explore and nurture your identity as a queer person?
So before university, I was very shy, quiet, kind of withdrawn, and didn't really like attending social events. But one of my goals for university was to kind of become a little bit more open. So I decided at the start of the year to attend a couple of the freshers events. I didn't enjoy all of them because some of them weren't my cup of tea, but there were a couple that I did enjoy. So I continued going. One of the ones was the LGBT society event. And I continued going to that society, and I got to know the president and the SU staff and the SU president. And through that, they kind of continued to chat with me, get to know me, and said that I'd probably be pretty good talking to other students if I wanted to get involved with the SU. So I did kind of like dip my toes in, and then I ran, and it's only built my confidence. Like I would never have done this a year ago, but now here I am talking about my experiences at uni. So it's definitely helped me be a more vocal person on issues that I care about.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. I suppose on the issues point, so aside from being LGBT, do you feel that kind of being a part of the university community and your responsibilities as, the rep have, made you more aware of LGBT issues more generally?
Definitely. So I'm part of the NUS cohort for LGBTQ plus reps. And we have a group chat, we have a Discord server. And in those, we talk about the issues that we face as students and how we can best improve those situations and work together to do group events or group campaigns. And some of these issues I would have never thought about because they're not as much of an issue at University of Suffolk, or no one's spoken about the issue that's at University of Suffolk before to me. And through that, then I can take that to my cohort and be like, is this something you've had an issue with? And if so, what do you want me to do about it? So yeah, I definitely, because like a good example of this is the the banning of conversion therapy bill that's kind of a bit of contest at the moment. I put forward a motion at last council to submit a statement about it because a lot of other universities were doing similar things. So I said in that motion that the SU release a statement in support of banning conversion therapy in its full form, including all different types. And that got passed. And so we're submitting a motion in a couple of days, submitting a statement even in a couple of days. So that's very exciting.
That is really exciting. That's amazing. That's great. Wow, cool. So my kind of follow-up question would be then, what kind of facilities and provisions are there for LGBT students at university, or at your university, so the University of Suffolk?
So we've been slowly improving our provisions over the last year. So in the last couple of months, we've added intranet pages to our student network pages that have support for trans and non-binary students and LGBTQ plus students, so a sexuality and a gender page, basically, that kind of have toolkits, some resources, who they can contact, the best policies that if something bad does happen, they can look at and get improved, and also a bit on allyship. So how can I support other people who are going through these issues or are LGBT, and how can I support them and make sure that the university is doing all they can to help these people. And we're also in the process of finalising our trans policy, which should hopefully, fingers crossed, come into place in September, which is something I've been helping behind the scenes for like a year and a bit now.
Okay, so for anyone who doesn't know, what would a trans policy look like, or what would the outcome be?
So a trans policy is a document that's written by the university that kind of states what they do to support trans students. So it includes some information on how they are planning on making the process of changing names on university systems smoother, how they handle medical leave, which teams are involved, if there's a named staff member that students can go to, and like a bit about training as well is in there, I believe. And it's kind of a document that states the standards that the university is meant to meet, and then they can be held accountable if they aren't meeting those standards.
That's perfect. Yeah, I was just going to say it's all about accountability, isn't it? And just really nailing your flag to the mast, as it were. So that's great. Thank you. So what effect do you feel that having access to an LGBT society has for queer students?
So I think that the society is really helpful for building friendships, because some students, they aren't represented by other societies as much. Like they might not have an extreme interest in Marvel films, for example, or they might not study fine art and don't really enjoy fine art. But if you're an LGBT student, you can go to the society and know that there are people that you can make friends with, even if you have different interests. And I also think that it provides some really great opportunities to do things that you wouldn't normally do. So one of the things we're looking into doing next year is, once we're finally back in person, doing pottery, doing a self-defense class, kind of things that you wouldn't normally do or are harder to access. So I think that's what the main benefit of a society is, cool experiences and making new friends.
Amazing. And then my follow-up question to that, I think, just to get a bit more info, is what kind of events do the society actually run for people? What are some examples of them?
So in the past, we have done a movie Q&A, which is where we showed a movie, and then the director and an activist came in and spoke a bit about the movie, answered questions. We also had a talk with a non-binary author who does graphic novels about gender, sexuality, and the history of the word queer. And then we do movie nights, we do social events, we go to the pub. And then upcoming in June, for Pride Month, we're doing a lecture series about queering the curriculum.
Wow, that sounds really exciting. I'm really excited to attend, hopefully I'm able to. And then my penultimate question rather. So as an LGBT person, how did living at home and studying for your level 3 kind of compare to then moving away and studying for your undergraduate degree?
So I was really lucky and my parents are really supportive. So there wasn't as massive as a leap as some people might experience, but I still had that sense of freedom from living in a uni accommodation, because there's some things like when your parents are about, it's really hard to explore. But once you're away from your parents and you don't have a curfew and you kind of can live your own life a bit more, that you can experience a bit easier, like going to nightclubs or even just attending like a sexual health clinic is really awkward if you've got to talk to your parents about it. Whereas when you're at uni, you don't have to tell anyone you're going, you just go. Yeah. So yeah.
Lovely. And my final question then, what advice would you give to any LGBT young people considering university?
So for those who are a bit younger and are considering university but are like 16 and haven't really decided on where they want to go, my major tip would be, if you are undecided, don't worry, you don't have to make a decision when you're 18. You can have a gap year, you can go into work and for like 5 years and then go to university later on. It doesn't matter. But know that there are people there that will support you at every step of the way if and when you decide to apply to university. For those that are a bit older and have selected a couple of unis that they're interested in, I'd recommend reaching out to the LGBT officer or the LGBT society at that university, seeing if they can have a little chat with you about what students' experience is like, what sort of events they do, what sort of support the university has in place. And stuff like that, because I know that a couple of students have reached out to me beforehand, and we've been able to be like, so this is the kind of stuff we do, this is how you access this support, and then as soon as they're enrolled, we can then add them to the group chat and they can get to know some people before they join in September. And it's a great way to make the start of university a little bit less daunting.
Definitely, because it can be really scary anyway, and then as kind of being in a bit of a minority group, you can feel like, oh, is this place for me? But I think getting in touch with the society or the rep prior to actually going, maybe in the summer before, gives you a really good idea of, you know, meeting a couple of people and feeling a bit less anxious potentially about it, because it is a big change. So yeah, I think that's really, really great advice. Thank you, Darragh. And thank you for joining me. That was lovely. I hope it was informative.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Lovely. All right. Bye.
Bye.